Hello and welcome to this week's Scrap Savvy workshop with Venetia from Scrapworx. In today's workshop we're going to be working with the Fabulous Florals Collection. I'm going to use our Essentials pack and I'm going to show you how you can create a double page layout working with a pattern paper pack that only has one of each pattern in it. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through your, before I run through the paper supplies that you need, I'm just going to run through some of the inks and things you're going to need. So I'm going to use these distress colors, the oxides. I'm going to work with Tattered Rose, Peeled Paint, Victorian Velvet, and Ground Espresso. You do not have to use the oxides. You can use any colors you have, but pick colors that are going to complement your layout. For the paints today, I'm going to work with Walnut Stain, Frayed Burlap, and I'm going to use a little bit of white. You can use any white. To apply the inks, you're going to need some blending tools and foams. To apply the paint, you're going to need a couple of paint brushes. Okay, and then to create the flowers, we're going to need a stylus or molding tool. Try and get something that has different sizes if you do have. If not, one of these. If you have like anything with a flat edge, this is a very old bone folder. I'm going to show you how an option if you don't have this in hand, and then a piece of sponge just to be able to work into with your stylus. Okay, you'll also need to add a little bit of dimension and depth to your layout. You will also need some foam squares, so I have that off to the side. So if these are not essential, if you don't want to ink your goodies and stuff like that, then you don't have to have this, but these are the colors that I've chosen to use for today's project. Okay, so I keep all my little supplies so that I don't lose them, because that's my favorite thing to do. I keep it all in a little container right next to me so that it's easy to act. Right, then for your photographs for today, you're going to need one landscape that measures 15 centimeters by 10 centimeters. It's going to run across like this. Okay, and then you're going to need two portraits that measure 8 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Okay, and I want to double mat them. So out of your light cardstock, you're going to cut a piece that measures 15.5 centimeters across by 10.5 down, and then two pieces that measure 8.5 centimeters across and 10.5 centimeters down. So you'll need two of your light. Out of the dark, you're going to cut one piece that measures 16 centimeters across, 11 centimeters down. And then still out of your dark, you're going to cut another two pieces that measure 9 centimeters across and 11 centimeters down. And those will become the photo mats for this. Right, so if you can get your mats ready, I'll attach as we go along. Okay, so for your background, you're going to need two plain cardstock. I chose to use white. Okay, so we're going to use the white cardstock. You need two pieces of white, plain white, to create your background. Okay, and then from your pattern paper pack, we'll start with the back of this. I sat one night in front of the TV and just cut out all the little flowers on the back of this. So you just need to sit and fussy cut. I have them all cut out like that. Okay, so from this pack, you're going to need three of these little ones. You're going to need a medium one and two medium-sized ones. And then there's like an in-between from the large. And then you're going to need two of the big ones. Okay, so if you have a look on your cut apart sheet, it'll be two of these, one of these, where's another, two of these, and then three of these little ones. Okay, the rest I suggest you keep them aside because we'll be using them in some other projects later on during the month. So out of the fussy cutting sheet with all the little flowers, that's what you're going to cut out, and you're going to keep those aside. Right, then you're going to need 4 patterns. Right, I'm going to work with this pattern from the collection. It's called Juliet. I'm also going to use the pattern paper called Raindrops on Roses, and then I'm going to use this pattern paper called Sweet Fragrances, And then our cut apart sheet I'm going to use Full of Life, and I'm going to use this tag page, The Florist Shop. The rest I'm going to keep for later. We'll use this in a different project, so I'm just going to put those aside. Right, so I'm not going to refer to the names as we go along. I'm going to refer, I like to teach in pattern paper 1, 2, 3, 4. That way it makes it easier for you to replace with what you have on hand. So from our pattern paper number 1, which is this one, voila, this is your pattern paper number 1. But instead of using this side of pattern paper number 1, I'm going to use this side. So out of your pattern paper number 1, you're going to cut this piece in half. Okay, so that's going to give me like that. So I need, out of this pattern paper number 1, I need you to cut 2 pieces that measure 30.5 centimeters across, 15 centimeters down. Okay, so we'll need that. Right, we'll put that aside. Out of your pattern paper number 2, which is this one, okay, we're going to do quite a bit of cutting and punching. Oh, that's the one thing I forgot to tell you you need. You will also need some sort of border punch. I chose to use the scallop one. You can use any kind of border punch you have on hand. Right, you'll need that as well. Okay, so out of this pattern paper number 2, you're going to cut 2 pieces that measure 30.5 centimeters across, 7 centimeters down. So we need 2 of those like that. Okay, you will cut 2 pieces that measure 30.5 centimeters across and 3 centimeters down. Once you've cut them out, you will then use your border punch to punch the border. These 2 pieces are going at the bottom, so you want to make sure that if you have text on your paper like I do, that your text is facing the right way up. And then you'll be left with a piece, just a piece like this. Again, I suggest you keep it on hand because we'll probably use it in one of the other workshops. Right, so we can put this out the way. Then out of your pattern paper number 3, which is, let me just get it. It is this one. So before we get to cutting up this one, what I need you to do, if you're using the same paper as me, is that you're going to cut off this piece over here. And we keep the tags because we'll use them later on. So let's quickly run through that. So out of this page, you can cut out the tags. I need this one here. We're going to cut this one in half. Okay, and then make 2 little tags out of 1. All right, I need this tag over here. That's that one there. And then I need this tag over here. And then this one over here. Okay, so those are the tags that we're going to need from this page. But remember, you're going to cut it off over here. Once you've cut this off, you're going to take this piece here and you're going to turn it over. Okay, remember we have all these tags, we're going to need them. Then from this little piece that you cut out here, we will get the following. You're going to cut 2 pieces that measure 1.5 centimeters. Where are they? Here we go. 2 pieces that measure 30.5 by 1.5, and then you're going to use your punch and punch out a border. You're then going to cut 2 pieces that measure 1 centimeter, so 30.5 by 1 centimeter. So all the strips are the same. And then you're going to cut 2 pieces that measure 30.5 by 2.5. You can double check that. Yes. Okay, 2.5. So if I turn this over, you will see that out of this piece, because we have this little extended bit, so don't cut off your braining strip. Because we have this extended strip, we're able to get all of these out of this little pattern over here. And it looks like a lot more pattern than it actually is. Okay. So there you go. So all of that out of this little piece. And even if you did make the mistake of cutting off the braining strip, you would still be able to get enough out of it. You will still have enough to cut everything that we need. Okay. So we need that is out of your pattern paper number 3, which is my dot. And if you don't have this and you don't have tags, I suggest you take pattern paper that coordinates with what you've chosen and just cut out a couple of tags so that we can use them in the class a little bit later in your layout. Okay, so that's that one. Then the last one is your pattern paper number 4. Okay, I'm going to use the back of it, and I really only need 2 little strips. So out of this, I just need you to cut 2 strips that measure 30.5 by 1 centimeter. If you are using the pattern paper, same as me, I suggest you cut it from the bottom so that you cut off your branding strip, which is already a centimeter, and then another centimeter, and leave this part for us to use later on. Right, and then in the cut apart sheet, this one, basically all we need from here are these labels. I'm only going to, you need to cut out these labels, and I just need 3 of the green ones. Okay, keep everything else, we'll use it later. Okay, so that's that out of the cut apart sheet. Okay, and then the little extras, I've already started to cut up my grey board and everything like that. So I will keep it, just put it together so that you can see. So from this collection we have the coordinating grey board die cuts. I'm going to from here use the word moments. I've already colored it in, and I want to use the title, Here's Your Moment to Shine. So I'm going to put that over there. Then from Fabulous Florals paper cut parts, these die cuts, you're going to need a strip of these flowers over here. So I'm going to just, I've already done mine, so what I'm going to do is just cut one off and show you what to do with it. Okay, but you are going to need the whole strip, and when we are done, they're going to look like this. Okay, so from that, I'm going to show you how to do that. And then from the laser cutting, I'm going to use quite a few of the leaves from this one, and it's just called leaves, and we're going to distress them and manipulate them to look something like that. Right, so I think that's everything you need. I'm going to just quickly go through the prep work. We're going to make the little flowers, we're going to color, paint the title, and then we'll start to put the page together. Right, so because I'm not going to use any heat to heat set anything, I'm just going to work on my cutting mat, and I've just put a little blending mat down to keep it nice and neat. Makes it easier for me to blend and work with. And mine is old, it's the sticky does still work, but it'll only work on the glass, it'll stick on the glass media mat. So I just attach it with a piece of masking tape, so that if I do need to cut anything, I can just lift it up and it's out the way. And if I do need to ink, then it's right here with me. But remember, your cutting mat is not heat resistant. So if you're going to use heat, remember to put your glass media mat back underneath here. Right, so I'm quickly going to show you how I'm going to color the titles. So I'm going to use frayed burlap and walnut stain. And remember, they need to be shook up. I have already pre-shook everything, but I'll just give it another little shake to make sure that everything is shook up. If you're unsure, you can always check at the bottom to see if the mica has settled there. Okay, so these look pretty good. So a little bit of frayed burlap. Now open that up. I'm going to put a little bit on my mat. I'm going to use a brush and just apply some paint to my chippies. If I was using a much lighter color, like a pink or something, I would have painted, put a layer of white on first. But because I'm just going with a brown, and the frayed burlap is very similar to what the base color, I'm not going to prep it with white first. It's not necessary. But like I say, if you're going to paint with a pink or light green or something like that, then I would suggest you actually prep it with some white. Okay, so I pull the paint across and I tap the paint on, and then I move my goodie out of the paint, because remember, as paint dries, it acts like an adhesive, and you'll go through all this hard work to get it to look fantastic. Leave it in the paint, and then it gets stuck to the surface, and you will be very sorry. Okay, so we're just going to add some paint like that. I'm not even putting it on 100%. There are some blotches here and there. Just make sure that you keep moving it out of your area so that it doesn't stick. Okay, I think that's quite a good layer. I have water off to the side that I put my brushes into. All right, and then you just want to clean up your little space. Just going to lift this up. Give it a bit of, doesn't even have to be 100%. There we go. Right, and then I'm going to bring this down. Okay, and before it dries, I'm going to apply the next layer. So I have this really old little brush of mine. I'm going to use that. I'm going to work out of the lid of my paint. Pick it up, put it on. Oh, it's thickened inside there. There we go. I'm going to put some paint on my mat. I have, you can use a nappy or a paper towel. Have that off to the side. And I'm just going to dab off any excess. And I want to have a reasonably dry brush. Not too dry, but reasonably. And then like I said, I'm not going to dry it. I still want it kind of wet because I'd like it to sort of blend. Remember, wet on wet blends. Dry on wet, wet on dry covers. So I'm holding my brush at an angle and I'm just pulling some of that brown paint across my title. I'm trying to get it on some places a little bit more than others, but just like that. Where it's got very streaky, I'll go over there again and just blend it in a little bit more, like that. Then I'll turn my title around and I'll do the same thing, pull it from the other side. So by holding it at an angle and pulling it across like that, the paint just catches on the edges of your title or on the grey board. So it's sort of like inking the edges of the grey board. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to pull it from the bottom. And here as well. And you'll notice I haven't loaded up again. All I've done now is go from this side to this side. And because there'll be paint on both sides of the brushes, of the brush. So sometimes just double check that you've got some extra on the back side of your brush before you actually load up again. There we go. And then you can go in and add a little bit of extra where you think you need it to be, right? And then like I can see here that it's a bit streaky, so I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to blend it in like that. Here and there. If you look at the piece of artwork that you're working on, if you have a look, you can see exactly where you need to blend and where you need to pull through and blend. Okay, so I'm just quickly going to do this one here as well. Again, I'm going to just hold it. Now, I normally work in the little frame itself. I cut mine out too soon. I was very enthusiastic. And then pull it down. The Timol's paint, distress paint dries pretty quickly, making it easier to be able to add your little layers. So there you go, that's going to go in over there. I can see I missed a spotty here. I'm just going to go in and add a little bit more. Right, then you can, if you want to, and I'm going to, is just at the top, of the moments. We can go in and just add in a little bit of extra, make it a little bit darker. I'm not too worried if I get a little bit extra on there. So I'm just working in a circular motion and sort of, let's say from the top part where the M goes up like that, across like that, is the furthest down I will go to add the little bit of extra to darken my title a bit. And I'm working in circular motions. I do not have a lot of paint on my brush, just a little bit to be able to blend it in, and I'm quite happy with that. And then here as well, where the join to the shine is, I'll go in and do the same thing. Just add a little bit of, make it just a tiny little bit darker, just on top of the shine. See, I pick up paint and I take off, and then just go in and add that paint. Just a little bit there. So it just creates a little bit of a distinction between where the moment is, and I'll just do the top of the T here as well. Just there on the joins. Okay, I'm quite happy with the way that's turned out. So this one I'm not going to wet just yet. I'm just going to put it aside because I would like to add some white paint. Right, so we're going to do exactly what we did with the brown. Just going to put a tiny bit of white paint. Okay, then I'm not going to wet my brush. All I'm going to do is take paint off my brush. I'm going to try to get as much of it as I can, get it nice and clean without wetting the brush. If you have another brush, messed up brush like this spare, you can swap over to that. But I kind of like that there might be a little bit of brown still left in there, so when I pick up the white, it's not stark white. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to pick up some white, I'm going to dab it off, pull it down, and then just here and there add a bit of white to the edges. So the same concept, hold your brush at an angle and pull the paint across. This is one of my favorite ways to do to color the titles, the grey board embellishments, the titles. It helps, I think, by doing like that, creates a bit of shading, and I think it just gives your titles a little bit of dimension and makes them pop on your page. So again, I pulled it across, now I'm pulling down. I'm not covering up as much, I'm not doing it as much as I did with the brown. I just want the white to catch here and there. And remember, if you don't like it, you can always blend that white in. Right, so I did from left to right, top to bottom, bottom to top, now right to left. You can see here. There we go. And just check that it works. Yes. So I feel that this needs to be worked in just a little bit more, and that's where working in a round circle will come in handy, will help me blend it a little bit. I don't want the lines to be too harsh. Again, you've just got to look and you've got to decide where you think you need a little bit more and where you need to fix it. Like I feel that we need to pull it across a little bit more here. Didn't get enough. There we go. I think that'll do. Right, so these can go over to the side, and then I want to do the same on my moments. I've already colored this one in. I just wanted to be sure that it's going to work. So again, I'm just going to hold the brush at an angle and pull across, and I'm going to especially go over the moments so that that word can pop nicely. So left to right, bottom to top, top to bottom, right to left. So I've got some paint on now, and I can see my little streaks just need to be worked in a little bit more. And if I think I've done too much, I can always go and pick up on the brown, the darker brown, and just do the same thing. There we go. I'm happy with that. Right. Just want the title, the word to stand out a little bit more. So a nice way to get that done is to add a little bit of paint to your brush and then to just tap, 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 tap in the piece that you want to stand out. There we go, like that. That looks good. So if this goes onto the pattern paper now, I'll just pop it onto this one. You can see that that's going to stand out really nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to clean up quickly and I will see you in a bit. Right, so the next thing I want to do is just make the flowers and the leaves because we just need these few little extras. So we will need our Victorian velvet, tattered rose and peeled paint. Okay, those are the two colors we're going to need for the flowers and then for the leaves. So you need to cut out the flowers from just cut them apart. If the color in the front is not what you want, we've printed them single-sided so that you can then just change the color on the other side. I like that the pattern comes through a little bit when we do the flowers. Right, so what we need to do, the first thing I'm going to do is ink the flowers with some tattered rose. No, I lie. We're going to do Victorian velvet first. Okay. I'm going to use one foam. So all we need to do is make sure that the foam is clean. So I take off. And I only use this one for oxides. And then I have another set for my distress inks. Don't mix them up. Okay, so I like to put my ink pad next to my mat. It makes it easier for me to pick ink up, especially when I'm doing a lot. So I pop it on next to my mat and then my mat becomes my extra hand. So I can hold on to my flower and pick the ink up. And then I'm just going to ink around the edges like this of the flower. Make sure I get ink on each petal. I want to get the edges quite dark. But don't cover the center part just yet. Okay, so you just want to make sure you get the ink on reasonably dark. If you put your flower down and work from hold your tool at an angle, work from off the mat and onto the mat, you can actually get a nice dark layer on. All right, so I did that. And then I compared it to the flowers that I want to use. And I felt that it was just a little bit too pinky. So the best way then, when I did it with the tattered rose was just too light. So my solution is to combine the two colors. So again, I'll take off any excess ink. I will get the tattered rose next to me here. Pick up. I'm just going to ink over the entire flower. So I'm inking over the Victorian velvet and the tattered rose is covering the center. Okay, and by doing that and then just going around the edges again with a little bit of Victorian velvet just to make those edges dark again. See why we need the matte. I'm able to get a color that will work nicely with the flowers. So they look very nice together. Okay, and then once we finish manipulating it, I went around it with some ground espresso, which I will show you in a bit. So now because I've used the pink here and I don't want it to contaminate my green, I'm just going to clean the little mat here. Okay, so for the leaves, I pretty much did the same thing. For the leaves, I used distress ink instead of the oxide. So the color is a little bit more vibrant. So we're just going to pick up some of that. And we're just going to go around the edges. You're going to put it on reasonably dark. Just like that. Okay, so you'll do that to however many leaves you'd like to use on your page. So the color we still need is this one. Right. So if you get to this part and you don't have a piece of foam and a stylus, the next best thing for here is then to use the back of a paintbrush and to just roll each petal till you get what you want. You can also use the stylus to pull the petals. It's not my favorite way to do it because sometimes you pull the petal right off. So curling with the back of a paintbrush is often your best option. But if you do have a mat like this, you're just going to put it down. You're going to take your stylus and you're going to work in a half circle, like a semicircle, wrong one, a semicircle on each petal, like that. Once you've done that, you put a bit of a pressure, don't push too hard. Once you've done each one, you've gone around the petal to like a semicircle around each petal like that. You're going to put the stylus and just pull that petal down, turn, and you're going to do that to each petal. Just pull it in. You'll see when you pull it in, the flower curls up. Okay. And I like to put in just a bigger one and just give it a little bit of extra so that it can cup around the bigger part. Okay, and then you can just pop that over and push that down. Right, and there we go. We have a nice little flower, right? Don't need that one. And you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but keep this one handy because you never know. Keep the 6 handy just in case. For this one, I took a very thin stylus. You can fold it if you want to. We will fold it as well. And I just pulled a line down the middle of the leaf to get that score line. And then I'm going to fold it in half like that. And we're going to apply some ground espresso or any brown ink, chalk or ink that you have down the center, and then on the edges of the leaves as well, like this. Okay, once I did that, I did the same thing, but on the front, I just ran the stylus along the edge of the leaf, and again on the other side. Then turned it over, and you can clearly see where the scoring line is. Just gave it a little bit of a burnish, like that. And there we have a nice shaped leaf instead of a little flat leaf. Okay, then this one that we did, you're just going to take some, I didn't load up any more ground espresso on my foam because there is enough. Just going to tap some ground espresso onto the flower, like that. Okay, so there's your flowers created, your leaves are done. The last thing left to do is this tag comes, full tag like that. I cut it in half. I put this one on top of this one and then use this, this on top of this one and used it as a template to cut. Right, it's too white to be on my page, so I thought to give it a little bit of some color, and I inked around it with some tattered rose. Okay, so you need your tattered rose again. All you're going to do is load up and then go around the edges very lightly. And you can then bring a little bit of that ink further onto the tag, just here and there. You don't want to cover the entire tag with the pink. Okay, and then again I went around the edges with ground espresso. So remember, there's quite a bit of ink on the sponge, so just use it first before you load up again. Okay, I put it on like that, and then to pick it up, and then apply it this way. And if it looks too dark for you, you're just going to go over with the pink again and soften that brown. There we go. Happy with that. Okay. So we can just maybe bring in a little bit more on this one so that they're more or less the same. There we go. Better. So now I know when this goes on my page and sits with my flowers that it all coordinates nicely. It's not a, it doesn't need to be a perfect match, but the colors complement each other. Even when I bring in the little flowers that we've made, it all complements with the leaves. It's going to look really nice. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly clean up my space and I will be back to start with the assembly of the layout. I'll see you in a bit.